In today's fight news, we start off with flyweight standout Manel Kape speaking on why he had to pull out of his most recent event. This is the first time I've ever pulled out of a fight. I broke the cartilage of my rib and I couldn't move for a week. On Thursday last week, my surgery went extremely well. Bear in mind that all my fights that got canceled in the past were due to my opponents. Where I come from, we used to fight for free. I'm not bragging about it. I'm just being honest, so don't ever think I'm like some of you guys. Allah is the great. In other fight news, former UFC Women's Featherweight Champion Germaine de Randamie makes her long-awaited return after 3.5 years outside of the octagon. While doing an interview with Aaron Bronsteter, the former champ made a call-out of the current champ, Raquel Pennington, reminding everybody that she holds a win over her. Also speaking to Sportsnet's Aaron Bronsteter, Chris, the Action Man Curtis, says he's going to pretty much do what he did last time in his rematch at middleweight with Brendan Allen this Saturday at UFC Vegas 90. Curtis also took the opportunity to make a plea to EA Sports ahead of their upcoming EA UFC 5 video game. He stated, "I remember I was living with Sam Alvey when he first got in the game, and his feelings were so hurt because they gave him such bad stats. This will be Curtis's first appearance in the video game, and he's hoping that they give his player proper dues." Curtis's dance partner for the upcoming UFC Vegas 90 main event, number 6 ranked middleweight Brendan Allen, says that he is eager to avenge the quote-unquote fluke loss that he suffered at the hands of Curtis previously. During the UFC Vegas 90 press conference, featherweight standout Alexander Hernandez was asked if he knew why his opponent Damon Jackson disliked him so much. When he asked why, the reporter said it was because of comments he made prior to his fight previously with Cowboy Donald Cerrone, in which he responded, quote-unquote, pretty homosexual, and that's like the softest of all time. When his opponent Damon Jackson was asked about the beef, he said that the reason why he doesn't like Hernandez is because of the previous comments made to Cowboy Cerrone, and he also said, quote-unquote, he's arrogant and I just don't like him, something about his face. While speaking to Low Kick MMA, UFC superstar Jorge Masvidal had this to say about the current BMF champion Justin Gaethje. "If you put BMF against BMF, if you put me against Gaethje in there, I would break his effing eye orbital, and I would effing chop him up." Speaking of the BMF champion Justin Gaethje, when asked about his opponent Max Holloway and their upcoming matchup at UFC 300, this is what he had to say. "I will finish Max. He might not go to sleep the traditional way, but I think I will inflict enough damage to where the doctors need to stop it." Gaethje's manager, Ali Abdelaziz, had this to say on X. "At Justin Gaethje, pay-per-view, box office, biggest name on the card next week." Coming off an impressive win this past weekend at the UFC Atlantic City event, number 2 ranked women's flyweight Manon Fiorot had this to say on an episode of the MMA Hour. "I was really disappointed when I knew I had to fight Erin Blanchfield because I really think I deserved a title fight after the Rose Namajunas win. Perhaps it was difficult to begin my training camp because it was not the opponent I wanted to fight. I had a good camp with a lot of motivation to show I am the best, so it was good." Also on the MMA Hour, number 4 ranked women's flyweight Macy Barber had this to say about the woman who sits one slot ahead of her, Erin Blanchfield, stating, "Erin Blanchfield's ground game and her wrestling are good. Her striking's terrible, and she's not an exciting fighter. The fight against Manon Fiorot went exactly how I thought it was going to be." Former middleweight champion Chris Weidman shared a picture of his eye after this past weekend's UFC Atlantic City event in which him and Bruno Silva shared eye pokes. While speaking to Valeria Lipovetsky on YouTube, former women's bantamweight champion Ronda Rousey had this to say about the backlash she received after her loss to Amanda Nunes. I saw how all these people that I was coming back to fight for had suddenly turned against me. All of my appreciation for them turned into resentment, and I just didn't want to have anything to do for them and with them anymore. Top 5 lightweight contender Arman Tsarukyan shared a picture of his current condition ahead of his UFC 300 fight with Charles Oliveira. The fighter's looking in amazing shape. In other news, bantamweight champion Sean O'Malley recently spoke on Sean Strickland's mental health issues on an episode of the Timbo and Sugar Show, stating, "Just going in there and sparring and getting hit in the head, not that he gets hit that much, but if you're getting hit not that much, but you spar every day, that adds up." Former bantamweight champion Petr Yan said he's looking for rematches against Merab Dvalishvili and Sean O'Malley, stating, "I want rematches. I'm interested in Sean O'Malley, Merab Dvalishvili. These 2 rematches, and plus, I'm interested in Marlon Vera, guys who are in the top 5. While speaking to Kevin Iole, former featherweight king Max "Bless" Holloway had this to say about the possibility of fighting lightweight champion Islam Makhachev. "If I can go out there and get my hand raised, there's a lot of fights that can be there for us. One of them being the 155-pound champ, which I think would be a fun one." Recently on an episode of the Weighing In podcast, former Strikeforce lightweight champion Josh Thompson had this to say about Chimaev versus Whitaker. "I think his O is gone," speaking on Khamzat Chimaev's undefeated record. MMA reporter Ariel Helwani recently posted on his X account in regards to the pending matchup between Israel Adesanya and champion Dricus du Plessis, stating, "I'm told Israel Adesanya hasn't officially been offered this yet, but if he does, he's 100% in. And for what it's worth, I'm told DDP hasn't officially been offered yet, too. But this is what both camps would like to happen." The seeming third man out in the middleweight division, Robert "The Reaper" Whitaker, recently had this to say on MMA Arcade about the chances of Israel Adesanya getting the title shot before him. "I think Adesanya fighting for a title again hurts me, but I understand. Dricus asked for it, and he's the champ, and Adesanya is a draw." Per Nolan King at MMA Kings on X, "For all you UFC 5 fanatics, 34 fighters are set to be added to the game in the coming months." Lastly, we wrap up the show with some fight announcements. Muin Gafurov will take on Kyung Ho Kang at UFC Saudi Arabia on June 22nd. Also, Nico Price taking on Jeremiah Wells at UFC 302 on June 1st. For UFC Vegas 93, we have lightweights Thiago Moises versus Ludovic Klein. Also on the UFC 302 card, we have Yoon Sung Park versus Andre Lima. Charles Radke will be taking on Carlos Prates at UFC Vegas 93 on June 8th. Pedro Falcao will now be taking on Victor Hugo at UFC Vegas on April 6th as Alatengeli is out of the matchup. And lastly, we have another addition to the UFC St. Louis event on May 11th. JJ Aldrich will take on Veronica Hardy.